Chapter 13. The Underground Resistance. The night was as dark as ink, and the cold wind howled through the crumbling ruins, stirring up broken stones and dust from the ground. Alya pressed herself against the remains of a collapsed stone wall, holding her breath as she listened intently to the sounds around her. She had been on the run for 2 days now. The Black Armor Legion's relentless pursuit never ceased, forcing her to keep moving into the unknown. Her hand rested lightly on her chest, feeling the faint, unstable pulse of her soul power within, an energy still in slumber, on the verge of awakening, yet bound by invisible chains. The ruins before her resembled what might have once been a magnificent underground temple, now reduced to nothing but shattered remnants. She hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, an eerie chill swept through her body. It was as if an ancient force lingered in the air, watching her every move. Then, movement. Alya instinctively twisted her body. A sharp gleam sliced past her cheek. With a dull thud, the weapon embedded itself into the stone pillar behind her. She immediately leaped backward, her gaze locking onto the assailants, several dark figures emerging soundlessly from the ruins. Though their clothing varied, they all carried a lethal aura, the unmistakable presence of highly trained warriors. Alya narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" A deep voice responded. "That's our question." A tall man stepped forward from the group, his black cloak shifting with his movement. Beneath it, a strong, chiseled face was partially illuminated by the faint moonlight. His brown eyes held a sharp, assessing glare. "Are you an Imperial spy, or a dog of the Undead Legion?" Alya's body tensed in alert. "I belong to neither." The man let out a cold chuckle, lifting a hand to signal his companions to stand. "Down. Everyone claims to be innocent, but here, innocence is the most laughable word." Alya's gaze swept over the group. Their faces were hardened, but in their eyes, she saw something different from mercenary indifference, something deeper, something rooted in purpose. "Who are you?" she asked cautiously. "We are the Underground Resistance." His voice was steady, commanding. "We have no ties to the Empire, but we stand against the Undead Legion." Alya's heart clenched. The Undead Legion. That name struck her like a lightning bolt, the terrifying force that had once existed only in the Empire's forbidden legends. Hadn't it been annihilated 100 years ago? She had overheard whispers about it in the Black Armor Legion's camp, but those rumors were always dismissed as myths. Even General Night Owl had never spoken of it as anything more than a ghost story. Her throat felt dry. "The Undead Legion is real?" The man's gaze deepened, as if searching for deception in her words. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "Not only is it real, but it is rising again." Alya's breath caught in her throat. If this was true, then what exactly had the Empire been hiding? Was she being hunted merely for her undead abilities? Or was her existence itself tied to something far greater? "So," the man continued, "if you are truly not an Imperial spy, then prove it." Alya's eyes sharpened. "How?" "By surviving the trial." His tone left no room for negotiation. 3 days, cross the Forest of the Dead, and return alive. Alya frowned. The Forest of the Dead? It is one of the most concentrated sources of undead energy. Many of our warriors have trained there to test their survival skills. His expression was calm, yet carried an unmistakable edge. "If you make it through, perhaps we will believe you." Alya fell silent. Retreat had never been an option for her. She slowly lifted her head, meeting his gaze directly. Her voice was quiet, yet firm. "Fine." The wind whispered through the shattered ruins, as if murmuring about the inevitable clash of fate soon to unfold. The night was heavy with darkness. A thin, eerie mist shrouded the forest of the dead, where decayed trees twisted like skeletal remains. A cold wind occasionally swept through, carrying whispers that sounded like the murmurs of lost souls. Alya stood at the forest's edge, with the underground resistance leader, Osman, and his warriors watching in silence behind her. "Remember," Osman said gravely, "once you enter this forest, you will have only yourself to rely on. If you emerge alive in 3 days, we will believe you are not our enemy." Alya raised an eyebrow. "And if I don't make it out alive?" Osman's gaze was icy. "Then you will have become one of the undead, and we will personally put you down." The air was sharp as a blade, slicing through any pretense of warmth. Alya took a deep breath, said nothing more, and stepped into the forest of the dead. The moment she crossed the threshold, a suffocating pressure weighed down on her. The very air reeked of decay and death, as if the forest itself were a living entity, lurking, watching, waiting. She moved cautiously through the tangled roots and gnarled branches, every step deliberate. There were no sounds of life, no birds, no insects, only a heavy, stifling silence. Then, rustle. Rustle. Alya halted abruptly. Her fingers tightened around the hilt of her dagger as her sharp gaze swept the surroundings. And then, she saw them. Figures emerging slowly from behind the rotting trees, grayish skin, hollow eye sockets flickering with an eerie green glow. The infected. Once living beings, now consumed by necrotic energy, their souls long devoured, reduced to mindless slaves of the forest. Alya exhaled sharply, gripping her dagger. "Great. Barely stepped in, and I'm already running into these things." She knew a direct fight was unwise. Her soul power was still suppressed. She had to break through. With a swift motion, she leaped onto a slanted branch, using it as a springboard to propel herself onto a sturdier tree limb. But the infected, sensing their prey, let out guttural howls and lunged toward her with unnatural, contorted movements. One clawed hand slashed toward her. Alya twisted midair, barely avoiding it. Her dagger flashed, slicing toward an infected's neck, only for the blade to sink in like it was cutting through sludge, causing no real damage. Damn it. These things don't feel pain. Her mind raced. Adjusting her tactics, she swung her blade lower, slashing at the creature's knee joint. This time, the limb crumpled, sending the infected sprawling, temporarily immobilized. But there were too many of them. Dozens more emerged from the shadows, their hollow eyes fixated on her. She clenched her jaw. I need a plan. Fast. Her soul power trembled within her, trapped beneath the layers of sealing magic. She could feel it stirring, desperate to break free. If I don't find a way to unleash it, I'll be overwhelmed. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, focusing, attempting to pull at the suppressed energy within. But the seal was like an unbreakable wall. The moment she tried to force her undead power through it, a violent backlash surged through her body, pain exploding in her veins. She gasped, dropping to one knee, blood trickling from her lips. The infected closed in. Their soulless green-lit eyes gleamed as they reached for her. And then, something inside her snapped. Alya's eyes flew open as a surge of unfamiliar, wild energy coursed through her. A crack appeared in the seal. Her fingers lifted instinctively, as if guided by something deep within her soul. Words she had never spoken before slipped from her lips in a low, commanding whisper. Covenant of the Fallen. Heed my call. The air around her twisted. A violent vortex of black mist spiraled into existence, consuming the surrounding energy like a ravenous beast. And from within that swirling abyss, a figure emerged, towering, clad in tattered black armor, wielding a massive war halberd, its eyes burning with deep blue soul flames. A Wraith Knight. Alya had summoned a warrior of the dead. A shudder ran through the infected horde. They hesitated, instinctively recoiling from the overwhelming presence of the summoned spirit. Alya, still kneeling, stared in awe. She had never attempted a summoning of this magnitude. Had she broken through the seal's constraints? Her fingers tightened into a fist. Then let's see what you can do. Go. Her voice was low, firm. The Wraith Knight obeyed without hesitation. With a single step, it blurred into motion, a streak of darkness crashing into the infected. Each swing of its halberd was merciless, cleaving through them effortlessly, their bodies reduced to nothing but dissipating fragments. The battle was over in moments. Only scattered remains littered the ground, and the Wraith Knight slowly turned, lowering itself onto one knee before Alya, as if swearing fealty. Alya's breath was unsteady, her heart pounding. She had done it. She had shattered the limits placed upon her. 3 days later, Alya staggered back into the underground resistance's camp. Her clothes were tattered, her body covered in cuts and bruises, but her gaze was sharper, steadier than before. The gathered warriors stared in shock. "You actually made it back. Alive," someone whispered. Alya didn't respond, her eyes locked onto Osmond's. "I passed your test." Osmond studied her for a long moment, his gaze sharp, assessing. Then, slowly, his lips curled into a faint, knowing smirk. "It seems," he murmured. "We have much to discuss." Alya lifted her chin slightly, her expression unwavering. She was no longer just a pawn in someone else's game. Now, she would be the one making the moves. 1. Officially joining the resistance. The morning light filtered through the broken dome of the underground ruins, casting its glow upon a vast training ground. Once an abandoned imperial fortress, it had now become the base of the underground, resistance. Standing at the center of the field, Alya swept her gaze across the gathered resistance fighters, feeling their scrutiny upon her. Osmond stood with his hands behind his back, his expression stern. "Alya, you have survived the trial of the Forest of the Dead and proven your abilities. From this day forth, you are officially one of us." Low murmurs spread among the fighters. Some remained doubtful of her, their wary gazes filled with skepticism, especially the seasoned warriors who eyed her with undisguised caution. A necromancer. Can she really be trusted? Osmond, however, showed no hesitation. His gaze locked onto Alya as he continued. "But before you can fully integrate, you must undergo training, not ordinary training, but the kind that ensures survival on the battlefield and prepares you to truly fight against the undead legions." Meeting his eyes, Alya did not flinch. Instead, she nodded steadily. "I'll be ready." Osmond smiled faintly and gestured for 3 figures to step forward. Casper. "Lisa, Gale, starting today you will be responsible for her training." 2. The Assassin's Trial. Casper, a lean man with sharp eyes, stepped forward, a faintly amused smirk playing on his lips. An assassin doesn't rely on strength, but on speed and precision. The moment he finished speaking, his figure blurred. Within the blink of an eye, he was behind Alya, the cold edge of his dagger resting lightly against her throat. "If I were an enemy, you'd be dead already." Alya's heart tensed. She instantly stepped back, reaching to seize Casper's wrist, but grasped only air. Too slow. The next second, a gust of wind brushed past her. Her wrist was suddenly locked in an iron grip, and she was yanked forward. Casper's low voice murmured in her ear, "If you can't react faster, don't expect to survive on the battlefield." Alya took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. The training began. Casper blindfolded her, forcing her to rely solely on her hearing and intuition to sense an opponent's presence. At first, she was struck down repeatedly, always a fraction too slow to react. Again and again she fell, only to climb back up and face the challenge anew. Gradually, she began to notice subtle shifts, the faintest change in footfalls, the nearly imperceptible ripple in the air before an attack struck. She started to anticipate Casper's moves. On the second day, for the first time, she caught him in the middle of a feint. As he prepared to strike, she countered, forcing him back with a precise swipe of her dagger. Casper raised an eyebrow, chuckling. "Looks like you're catching on." 3. Mastering Soul Arts. Lisa, a gentle yet enigmatic sorceress, regarded Alya with glowing blue eyes. She raised a hand, and in the air between them, a faint wisp of soul light flickered into existence. "Alya, your soul energy is awakening, but you can't control it yet. That lack of control is a dangerous flaw." Alya frowned. "What do you mean?" Lisa extended a finger, channeling a stream of gentle soul energy into Alya. At once, a familiar darkness stirred within her, wild and untamed. "Your power is too violent," Lisa murmured. "Like a caged beast. If fully unleashed, you may not be able to rein it back in." Her voice was soft, but carried an undeniable weight. "You must learn to tame it." Lisa instructed Alya to sit cross-legged, surrounding her with a ring of pale blue soul flames. The first step of training was to sense the flow of her own energy and find balance within it. As Alya attempted to guide her soul power, she was met with fierce resistance. Every time she pushed deeper, the force fought back, dragging her into a suffocating darkness. In that abyss, she glimpsed countless ghostly figures, whispering in an eerie, ancient tongue. Their voices seemed to call to her. Abruptly, she gasped awake, drenched in sweat. Lisa smiled knowingly. "Take your time. You've already taken the first step." 4. Tactical combat. Gael was a towering warrior clad in heavy armor. Without a word, he tossed a massive battle axe at Alya's feet. "Pick it up." Alya frowned. "I'm not skilled with heavy weapons." "In battle, there's no such thing as skilled or unskilled, only alive or dead," Gale replied impassively. "You must learn to adapt to any weapon, any strategy. The enemy won't wait for you to choose what you're comfortable with." Clenching her jaw, Alya bent down and lifted the axe. The sheer weight nearly made her stumble, but she quickly adjusted her stance, steadying herself. The training began. Gale showed no mercy, relentlessly forcing her to engage in close combat. His every strike carried crushing force, leaving her with no choice but to block and counter. "Your combat style is too predictable," Gale said coldly. "The Undead Legions won't fight fair. Learn to use the environment. Learn to change your tactics. Otherwise, you won't last a day on the battlefield. 1 day, 2 days. Alya pushed herself past exhaustion, adapting little by little. She learned to use obstacles to her advantage, to spot weaknesses in an opponent's stance, to shift her approach when brute force wasn't an option. On the 5th day, for the first time, she managed to block one of Gale's strikes and counter with her own attack. Gale studied her for a moment before nodding approvingly. "Not bad. You're finally starting to fight like a real warrior." A mysterious sensation, as training progressed, Alya's combat skills, control over her soul energy, and strategic thinking all improved rapidly. But she soon noticed something strange. She could sense the presence of certain undead creatures before they even appeared. It was an instinct, a whisper at the edge of her awareness. Osmond took notice. "Alya, your sensitivity to the undead. It's too strong," he said thoughtfully. "This ability isn't something ordinary necromancers possess." Alya's brow furrowed. What are you suggesting? Osmond's gaze was deep and unreadable. Slowly, he said, "Perhaps. The Black Armor Legion isn't after you just because of your necromancy. Maybe it's because you yourself hold a secret, one that even you are unaware of." A hush fell between them. Alya's heartbeat quickened slightly. Her fate was turning out to be far more complicated than she had imagined. And her past might be hiding a truth far more profound than she had ever suspected. Late at night, the underground ruins war council chamber was dimly lit, the flickering candle flames casting twisted shadows on the stone walls. Alya stood beside Osman, her gaze fixed on the massive map spread before them. The map detailed the Empire's border fortresses, and in its center, a region was circled in thick black ink, the gathering place of the Undead Legion. "Recent intelligence reports indicate," Osman said, his tone heavy with concern, "that the Undead Legion is assembling at the Empire's border. Their numbers are larger than ever before. This is no longer a scattered presence. It's an organized force, as if preparing for a full-scale war." Alya furrowed her brows, her fingers unconsciously tightening around the edge of her cloak. "Their target is the Empire? Perhaps, or perhaps not." A nearby intelligence officer interjected in a low voice. "What's troubling is that the Empire's leadership has taken no action to stop this. Instead, they seem to be deliberately ignoring the situation." Alya stiffened. "Ignoring? What do you mean?" Osman let out a cold laugh, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. "The Black Armor Legion, along with certain Imperial nobles, appear to be secretly colluding with the Undead Legion." The air in the chamber grew thick with tension, and a chill ran down Alya's spine. "The Black Armor Legion?" she repeated under her breath. A name surfaced in her mind. Ren, the Empire's most feared warlord, known as the Black Nightmare. He was the very man who had led the Black Armor Legion in hunting her down. "Are you certain?" Her voice wavered slightly. "The Black Armor Legion has always been the Empire's most elite force. Why would they side with the undead?" Osman's gaze darkened. "We don't know their true motives yet, but they've been spotted in areas with heavy undead activity, not to fight, but to negotiate." Alya's fingers turned ice cold. A fragmented memory resurfaced, whispers she had overheard in Night Owl's camp. "The heir of the Undead Kingdom has appeared." At the time, she hadn't understood its significance, but now, a creeping dread coiled in her chest. The Undead Kingdom. The heir. Could it be that this war wasn't just about an undead invasion, but something far more sinister? The secret of the Undead Kingdom. "How much do you know about the Undead Kingdom?" Alya asked, turning to Osman. Osman exhaled slowly, stepping to the war table. From a pile of dust-covered scrolls, he carefully pulled out an ancient parchment. "A kingdom of the undead once existed in this world," he began, his voice weighted with history. 1,000 years ago, a powerful necromancer founded a nation where all living beings were transformed into undead, ruled under his dominion. Alya swallowed. "And then?" Osman unfurled the parchment. The ink was faded, the words eroded by time, but traces of their meaning remained. The Undead Kingdom eventually fell. But its records were deliberately erased. No one knows exactly how. It was destroyed. However, legend speaks of a prophecy left by its ruler before his death. Alya's breath hitched as he continued. The prophecy foretold that the Undead Kingdom would rise again, and that the heir to its throne would one day return. Alya's heart pounded violently in her chest, her pupils constricting. "So," her voice was hoarse, "the Undead Legion's goal is to resurrect the Undead Kingdom?" Osman nodded. "And it seems certain figures within the Empire, including some in the Black Armor Legion, are aiding them." Alya's breaths came faster. But what does this have to do with me? She demanded. Why are they hunting me? Osmond's deep eyes bore into hers. That is exactly what I want to ask you, Alya. A deafening silence followed. Alya opened her mouth but found no words. Her mind reeled, fragmented memories flashing before her eyes. Who was she? Why were the Black Armor Legion so determined to capture her? Why could she sense the presence of the undead? Why was her undead power unlike any ordinary practitioner's? The heir to the undead kingdom. She didn't want to consider the possibility, but the scattered clues were forming a terrifying picture. The true intentions of the Black Armor Legion. The Undead Legion is mobilizing, yet the Black Armor Legion has taken no action to suppress them, Osmond mused. Instead, they are engaged in secret dealings with the Empire's leadership. What does that imply? Alya forced herself to steady her thoughts. Either the Empire has completely succumbed to corruption, or they have a much deeper plan in motion. Osmond nodded. Whichever it is, this war is far more complicated than it appears. And our only option is to uncover the Undead Legion's true objective before the war erupts in full force, Alya concluded. Osmond's lips curled into a faint, knowing smirk. Not just uncover it, we need to infiltrate them. Alya stiffened. You're planning to send spies? Osmond's gaze settled firmly on her. Not just spies, he said. We need a messenger. Alya's chest tightened. You mean, you want me to go? Osmond nodded. There's an undeniable connection between you and the Undead Legion. Even if you refuse to acknowledge it, the signs are clear. He took a step toward her, his voice calm but firm. If there is anyone who can get close to them, infiltrate their ranks, and discover what they're truly planning, it has to be you. Alya's heartbeat pounded against her ribs. She instinctively took a step back, her mind flooding with images. The undead soldiers, the relentless pursuit of the Black Armor Legion, Night Owl's cryptic smiles, every event, every encounter, seemed to be guiding her toward a path from which there was no return. The Undead Legion, the Empire, the Black Armor Legion, the heir to the Undead Kingdom. Her fate was no longer in her own hands. The air was thick, with tension. Seconds passed in silence. Finally, she closed her eyes, exhaling a slow breath. When she reopened them, her gaze was sharp, unwavering. I understand, she said. Her voice was steady, resolute. I'll go. The night was deep, and the wind swept across the desolate land like a wandering specter. The battle flags of the Black Armor Legion flapped in the wind, and the heavy black armor reflected the faint moonlight, casting an icy gleam. Rain stood, silently atop a hill, gazing down at the ruins before him. His black cloak billowed with the night wind, and the warhorse behind him pawed at the ground uneasily, as if sensing an impending slaughter. Report. A scout from the Black Armor Legion knelt with a fist over his chest, speaking in a hushed tone. The underground resistance's movements have been confirmed. Their hideout is beneath these ruins. Ren's eyes narrowed slightly. So, they are here after all. How many? According to intelligence, around 50 to 70 men, including warriors, assassins, and mages. But most importantly, the key target, Alya, has been spotted among them. Rain remained silent for a moment, his fingers tapping lightly on the hilt of his sword. How has she progressed? He asked, his voice low and steady. The scout hesitated briefly before finally replying. She has passed the trials of the resistance, and it seems she has already mastered even stronger undead arts. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of Ren's lips. She's growing faster than I expected, he murmured, his gaze deep as the night. The Black Armor Legion's operation at Ren's command, the elite forces of the Black Armor Legion dispersed swiftly, like hunting hounds, in the darkness, silently slipping into the shadows of the ruins. Their movements were precise, nearly soundless, an eerie display of their deadly training. "Do not engage yet." Ren raised a hand, stopping the impatient lieutenant beside him. His tone was calm. "We need more intelligence." The lieutenant frowned. "General, since we've already confirmed their location, why not strike now?" Rain let out a cold chuckle. "If the underground resistance were merely a ragtag group, we would have wiped them out long ago. But Osman is not a simple man." His gaze sharpened as he looked toward the entrance of the ruins. "And besides, Alya is there. The lieutenant hesitated before asking, "What exactly is she to you?" Rain's expression remained unchanged, as if he himself did not have the answer. After a moment, he uttered 4 words. "Someone of utmost importance. 2. A hidden traitor." Meanwhile, deep within the underground ruins, a sense of unease was spreading. Osman stood in the war room, frowning as he studied a map of the tunnel network. "The Black Armor Legion is moving too fast," he said in a low voice. "They shouldn't have found us this quickly." Beside him, Lisa's expression grew tense. "Are you saying someone leaked our location?" Osman didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. "Damn it." Casper clenched his fists. "If there's a traitor among us, we're in serious danger." Alya stood to the side, equally unsettled. She retraced the events of the past few days in her mind, searching for any overlooked clues. If someone had truly betrayed them, who could it be? Her gaze swept across the gathered resistance members, studying their expressions: anxiety, anger, unease. Then, for a fleeting moment, she caught something unusual. A certain warrior, usually inconspicuous, was avoiding eye contact. His gaze flickered with a guilty tension, as if unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. Him? Alya's heart clenched, and her fingertips trembled slightly. She dared not act rashly, but she knew time was running out. The Black Armor Legion was closing in. If there truly was a traitor among them, a surprise attack could happen at any moment. 3. A gaze from a foreign. The training grounds, the glow of torches flickered across Alya's face. She gripped her sword tightly, panting slightly, sweat trickling down her temple. The intense training was molding her into a warrior, but her heart remained restless. An inexplicable pressure weighed down on her, as if something, or someone, was drawing ever closer. A creeping sense of danger loomed over the ruins. She lifted her head, peering into the distance. Suddenly, her heartbeat quickened. At the very edge of the darkness, a lone figure stood, barely discernible in the night, like a phantom blending into the shadows. Even with such distance between them, she could feel the overwhelming presence emanating from that man. It was him. Ran had arrived. Her breath caught, and her fingers unconsciously tightened around the hilt of her sword. Why? Can he always find me? Countless questions flooded her mind. But at this moment, answers were irrelevant. What mattered was, how would she face him? Her time was running out. The Black Armor Legion, the traitor, the looming war with the Undead Legion. Everything was closing in on her, forcing her to make a choice. In the distance, Ren's silhouette slowly faded into the darkness. His lips curled into an almost imperceptible smirk, carrying an enigmatic meaning. "It seems you're growing faster than I expected," he murmured, his voice a whisper carried away by the wind. Then, he turned and vanished into the night.